In the series The Gilded Age, Gladys finds herself miserable at Blenheim Palace. Her mother Bertha crosses the ocean to be by her side, not to command, but to support her daughter in confronting an ancient and exclusive aristocratic world. As Gladys once said after watching Faust with the Duke,
"A man sells his soul to gain riches on this earth.
And he lives to regret it."
Historically, the Vanderbilt dowry, which shocked high society, was used to repair the crumbling Blenheim Palace. Consuelo moved into the magnificent palace only to find herself in a silent prison. At every meal, she and the Duke sat at opposite ends of a long table, strangers to each other. You are but a link in the chain of this family's heritage. He married her not for love, but to save the honor and estate of the Marlborough family. Not to mention his cutting remark, "I will never set foot on American soil, as I despise anything that is not British." The greatest irony was that even though the servants of this ancient castle depended on her for their livelihood, they still looked down upon this American girl from a nouveau riche family. The arrogance and prejudice of the British aristocracy were truly unfathomable. However, she did not wilt in this loveless union. Instead, they each sought love and drifted apart. Her beauty and charisma drew admiration from the European art world. The French painter Paul César Helou painted her portrait, calling her a muse. The painter's descendants say there was a brief romance between them. A few years into the marriage, a French-American woman moved into Blenheim Palace. She was Consuelo's close friend and also the Duke's mistress. The three of them maintained a delicate balance that was difficult for outsiders to comprehend. Coincidentally, this friend's name was also Gladys, a detail that is simply an amusing coincidence. Sound familiar? Consuelo's mother, Alva, also had a close friend named Consuelo Iznaga, who was the inspiration for her daughter's name, and her husband, William, fell in love with that very friend, a fact that became the direct cause of their divorce. Intimacy and chaos always seem to go hand in hand in so-called high society. Besides the painter Paul, she also rekindled a romance with an old acquaintance, Winthrop Rutherford, but this lover ultimately lacked the courage to elope with her. Later, she was rumored to have had affairs with several of the Duke of Marlborough's cousins. Of course, not every dollar princess had such a lonely marriage. For example, Lord George Curzon, the inspiration for Downton Abbey, and his wife Mary Leader were deeply in love. Mary even helped him rise through the political ranks. But this was one of the few fairy tales among the more than 300 dollar princesses of that era. Consuelo was not so lucky, or rather she was repulsed by the Duke from the very beginning. As Gladys says in the show, "The thought of marrying him makes me sick." Yet, she fulfilled her duty. Within 4 years of their marriage, she produced heirs for the Marlborough family, 2 lovely sons. A flame of passion ignited her awakening. The young Consuelo was no longer just a doll in an aristocratic marriage, but began to question the meaning of her existence. She poured her wealth into philanthropy, building schools and hospitals on the Marlborough estate and improving the lives of the poor, which earned her the title, the People's Duchess, and the respect of the entire British royal family. She became a lifelong friend and spiritual ally to Winston Churchill. He once said of her, "Her intelligence far outweighs her beauty." The world-shaking Iron Curtain speech was drafted with her by his side. In that era, marriages among the British aristocracy were often merely a surface-level piece, with each party going their own way. Truly faithful and loving marriages, like that of George Curzon and Mary Leader, were, in contrast, a rare exception. But this gentleman's agreement of peaceful coexistence among the aristocracy was soon broken. A decade into her marriage, Consuelo fell in love with Reginald Fellows, a dashing Air Force officer and, incidentally, her husband's cousin. This time, she was no longer content to act out the script of a loveless marriage, but chose to break free from everything and elope with him to Paris. This elopement scandal shook the whole of aristocratic society. She faced not only a storm of public opinion, but also the immense risk of losing her title, children, and fortune. At this critical moment, it was Churchill who intervened to mediate. And across the ocean, her father, William K. Vanderbilt, flew to Europe, using his money to build a final line of defense for her. Just as in the plot of The Gilded Age, Consuelo's father truly did love his daughter. According to later financial records for her marriage, the restoration of Blenheim Palace, and his two grandsons, William gave a total of approximately $17 million to his daughter and the Duke of Marlborough's family, the equivalent of $600 million today. In the end, she parted amicably with her lover and formally separated from the Duke. But it was after this separation that she finally attained true freedom. Consuelo kept her title of duchess, leveraging it for public influence as she threw herself into political and social reform. She staunchly supported the Liberal Party's welfare bills, pushed for free meals and health checks for children, and became the first aristocratic woman in British history to publicly advocate for unmarried mothers. During World War I, she served as the chair of the American Women's War Relief Fund. After the war, she dedicated all her energy to the women's suffrage movement, becoming a symbolic figure for women's voting rights in both Britain and America. The lens of history finally freezes on the moment she gives a speech. On Grosvenor Square, her posture is erect, her expression resolute. She is no longer the doll forced into a wedding dress, but a woman who is truly the master of her destiny. This marriage, which existed in name only, ultimately needed an end. In 1921, Consuelo and the Duke of Marlborough formally agreed to divorce. However, in order to marry her true love, Jacques Balzan, in a church, she still needed the Vatican to officially annul her previous marriage. This time, her mother, Alva, stood by her daughter's side. She testified in person, admitting how she had used coercive methods to force Consuelo into the marriage years ago. She used all her connections and wealth to pressure the Vatican. In 1926, the union once hailed as the wedding of the century was officially declared null and void by the church. True freedom had finally arrived. That same year, Consuelo and Balzan married quietly. She was 44 years old. Balzan was a record-breaking aviation pioneer who had worked with the Wright brothers. His father, Etienne Balzan, was an early lover of Coco Chanel, and he himself had been captivated by Consuelo at a social event when she was just 17. During World War I, he and Consuelo's father co-organized the Lafayette Escadrille. He met her again during this time, and his passion was rekindled as if his entire single life before then had been spent waiting for her. After their marriage, they settled in France. During World War II, Balzan joined the Free French forces and participated in the liberation of southern France. When the Nazis invaded, with the help of Churchill, they traveled through Spain and Portugal, finally reaching the United States. They spent 30 happy years together until Balzan's death in 1956. Consuelo once said,
"This was a marriage truly full of love."
In 1964, she passed away in America. According to her last wishes, she was buried in the chapel at Blenheim Palace, laid to rest beside her youngest son, who had died early. The Folk Hospital in Paris, which she co-founded with friends, continues to operate to this day, still protecting lives. Her life truly embodied that powerful line from Bertha Russell in the show.
You can influence politics, shape events. You can have powerful, interesting lives.
She did it. However, the Gilded Age still beautifies Bertha's manipulation of her daughter's marriage. In the show, Gladys seems to have only one semi-respectable suitor, Billy, yet he is so timid that he lacks the courage to even ask Mr. Russell for her hand. But the real-life Consuelo, blessed with both beauty and talent, had numerous suitors. As an heiress at the pinnacle of America's pyramid of wealth, she never longed for a cash-for-class marriage, but for her own romance and freedom. In fact, what Alva acquired for her daughter by pouring out the family fortune was merely a stage in the rural English aristocracy, one far less exciting than 20th century America. The time when Consuelo truly began to shine was, fittingly, after her separation from the Duke, during her years living in London. That said, the Duke of Marlborough wasn't so unbearable. He was an orator, had served in the military, and was on good terms with Churchill. He later married his second wife, Gladys Deacon. In her youth, Gladys was a celebrated European socialite, who, for the title of Duchess, was willing to be his mistress for 20 years. However, this marriage was not a happy one either. In her quest to preserve her beauty, she underwent frequent plastic surgeries that ultimately ruined her face. She not only smashed every mirror in Blenheim Palace, but even kept a gun by her bed, forbidding her husband from coming near. Later, she was evicted by the Duke of Marlborough multiple times and eventually died in a psychiatric hospital. It seems the Duchess title that Bertha fought so desperately for tragically became a curse within these distorted marital relationships. Now, with season 4 of The Gilded Age renewed, how will Gladys's marriage unfold? Will she, as Bertha suggests, treat love as an accessory to her life's goals, follow the path her mother has paved, and grow to form a power alliance with her husband? Or will she tear off that beautiful mask and confront the stark and cruel reality of a loveless marriage? I'm Judy, and next time I'll continue the story of the second half of Alva's formidable life.